glass half full or half empty? What do you think? Half full? When it comes to looking at the world, are you that positive type who wears those joyful glasses? Or are you the half empty type whose glasses are rather gloomy and you see only the bad things? What type of person are you when it comes to looking at our world? Half empty or half full? Gloomy or optimistic? I wonder. I think it's easy at this time when we've just experienced this incredible pandemic and it's still going on, and it's very easy to be very gloomy and pessimistic about the world. But today I just want us to take a step back, because one day this will be over. The season of COVID-19, it will end. And I want you to step back into a world that's continuing along on its way. And I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you think, compared to, say, 50 years ago, is our world getting better or is it getting worse? What do you think? There's a fascinating book called Factfulness by a guy called Hans Rosling. And Rosling asks some very interesting questions. I'm going to share a few of them with you and let's see how you do. In the UK, an average person lives about 81 years. But what about the world? How long does the average citizen of the world expect to live? The answer is 72 years old. I bet that was higher than you thought. And did you know African countries like Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, they have life expectancies that are even higher than that? We tend to lump African countries together, don't we? They're all poor. But Africa's a vast place. Imagine if an American made a documentary about the lifestyle of the average Romanian in Romania, working on a farm picking fruit. And then they ended their documentary by saying, well, this is how all the people of Britain live today. We'd be outraged. But the American producer would shrug his shoulders and say, well, you live in Europe, you're all the same. Ludicrous. But we do have this blinkered view when it comes to the vast continent of Africa, which is made up of all these diverse and different countries. We make these broad generalisations about Africa as a whole. And many of the images in our mind, they come from outdated textbooks. And they don't reflect the real Africa you can see today. Now, what about the poor? We tend to divide the world into rich and poor. But economists find it more helpful, more meaningful to divide the world into 4 income levels. And at the bottom, level 1, people exist on $1 or less per day. Now that's extreme poverty. That's places like Afghanistan. And at the top, in a rich level 4 country, people exist on $64 or more a day. In Britain, just in case you don't know, we're rich. We live at level 4. Even our beggars are richer than those living in extreme poverty. But here's the question. What percentage of the world's population lives in level 1 poverty? Would it surprise you to find out that back in 1966, the majority of the world lived in level 1 poverty? But now today, of the world's 7 billion people, just 1 billion live like this, about 14%. It's still way too many. But the trend is going down. It's going the right way. Now, what about this? How did the number of deaths per year due to natural disasters change over the last 100 years? Well, the answer is deaths due to hurricanes and tsunamis and volcanoes. They were more than halved. You wouldn't know that from the media, would you? They're always broadcasting what an incredibly dangerous place the world is. But the fact is, the world is actually less violent, a lot less safer than it ever was. Still parts of the world with extreme problems, but compared to how things were, they are getting better. And of course, the reason that deaths due to natural disasters have decreased over the years is because the world's got richer. There are less people living in level 1 poverty now. And as you know, it's the poorest people who are most prone to dying in a natural disaster, because they haven't got the early warning systems like, say, Japan has, to tell them in advance that a tsunami is coming and they can clear the beaches or whatever. Level 1 poverty countries, they don't have that. So the richer we get, we can sort of keep the death count less. That's a good thing. Rosling's book is really fascinating, and I recommend it if you like brain food. But his big point is that most of us view our world wrongly. We think the world is poorer, less healthy, and more dangerous than it really is. And weirdly, the people who view the world most wrongly and think it's way worse than it really is are the people who are most educated and supposedly the best informed. Why is that? Why do we see things worse than they really are? Why do we think things are worse than they really are? Well, Rosling says we've got built-in biases and filters, spectacles that emphasise the worst, most fearful and frightening bits of life. We've got gloomy spectacles. And so we end up thinking the world is poorer and less healthy and more dangerous than it really is. And I agree. But I also want to add, as a believer, that maybe we have an extra filter which makes us miss what God is doing in his world. Let's see if you've got this filter in place. Here's the question for you. What do you see when you look at your non-Christian neighbour? Do you see his overgrown lawn, his bad language, his bin overflowing with empty cans of booze, his dodgy business dealings, his rows with his partner? Is that all you see? Is there nothing good you can see in him? What about his kindness to his kids? What about the fact he helped that little old lady across the road to fix her fence and her car? What about his hard work? What about your work? Who do you see? Adulterous Pete? Lying Lily? Moaning Malcolm? Gossipy Lisa? Is that all you see? Is that the whole picture? Is there no one at work with an ounce of talent or skill or virtue? Does everyone treat each other like dirt every second? Are there no kind, encouraging words spoken from 9 to 5? Does everyone do nothing but complain all day long? Really? Are you missing something? Are you seeing the whole picture? One thing which really challenges me about the life of Jesus is how he can go to a party with a bunch of reprobates. They're all there and they've turned their backs on God. And they're drinking and they're telling dirty jokes and whatnot. And Jesus doesn't sit in a corner by himself, trying not to be contaminated by all the vileness going off around him. Oh, keep away, keep away. No, he can join in without getting drunk. He can enjoy the food, talking with all sorts and laughing. And these guys don't feel judged by Jesus. They love him. And they know he loves them. They want to know more. And some, like Zacchaeus and Levi, turn to follow Jesus. I wonder, how is Jesus able to be so joyful at a party full of sinners doing sinful things? What's he see which we don't? Jesus said, "Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven." And then he calls us to love our enemies because, why? Because that's what God does. He goes on, he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rains on the righteous and the unrighteous. Believers and unbelievers alike all receive many of the same wonderful blessings from God, whether they acknowledge them or not, whether they deserve them or not. God blesses his enemies and his friends alike with many of the same good gifts. These benefits and blessings don't save you, but God gives them to us all anyway, regardless of who we are. This idea is called common grace. It's God's everywhere grace. The beauty of God's common, everywhere grace is plain for all to see. We see it in God's beautiful creation. A stunning sunset, the beautiful range of spring flowers we've seen this year. Or maybe this monkey that we saw at the safari park. Everyone gets to enjoy the beauty of creation, regardless of their beliefs. You may think that the universe is a random accident which had nothing to do with God. And that's your right to believe that. But even you still get to enjoy the beauty of God's wonderful creation. It's a gift from God for all to enjoy. Look at all God's good gifts to all of us living in Britain today. A stable government, law and order, justice, roads, banking, water, supermarkets stocked with food, toilet paper, friends. Lots of great things. Friends, we need to recognise that God is doing a lot in our world, helping all sorts of people. They may never acknowledge him. They may never thank him. They may rant and rage against him. But God is there, loving them and helping them. Do you see that? And do you praise him for it? Because they won't. But do you praise him for it? All people, whether they're believers or not, are made in the image of God. And as Christians, we can recognise the divine spark in all sorts of people who would never darken the door of a church. And we can recognise that and praise our Lord for them. And as believers, we can find reasons to praise God everywhere. When we see beauty on the easel of an unbelieving artist, or in the pages of a novel by a known reprobate, we praise our God of beauty. He's the beautiful one and source of all beauty. When we see wisdom in the newspaper column of a humanist or an atheist, or in the words of our Muslim neighbour or an unbelieving lecturer, we worship our only wise God, the source of all wisdom. When we see the humble service of a street sweeper, or a toilet cleaner, or a sanitation engineer, we're reminded of Jesus, the servant king, who came to serve and not to be served, and to give his life as a ransom for many. When we see patience, the truck driver stuck in traffic at the same part of the motorway again, or the car mechanic who patiently deals with our stupid questions. What's a carburettor? Or the nurse answering the same questions over and over again from the patient suffering from Alzheimer's. We worship our God who patiently waited for us to turn to him to be saved. When we see love in the soldier who willingly risks his life for his comrades, when we see love in the imperfect relationships of unbelieving couples, we thank God for the love that he has shown us in Jesus. As Christians, we of all people should be praising God wherever we see him working in this world, improving the lot of many people. I know there's so much more to do, still lots to do. But don't forget, things are improving. God is working. He's blessing his enemies and us too. I wonder, are your spectacles too gloomy, too tinted with dark clouds? Maybe you've been a bit gloomy about this world. Friends, we've got much to thank God for. Why not take time now to thank God for family, friends, sunshine, health, beauty, food, literature, music, films, dramas? God's grace, God's common grace is everywhere grace. It reminds us that there's so much good hardwired into his creation for all of us to enjoy and benefit from. Maybe God is calling you to praise him more this week. Why not walk around your office or your place of work? Give thanks for the tiniest of things. Take a fresh look at your colleagues. They're made in the image of God. Why not praise God for the good things you see in their life?